So thanks everyone for joining us back. We're introducing our final session. Really looking forward to this one. How to leverage digital channels to generate MQLs and convert them into buyers. Wouldn't we all like to do that? Plenty of MQLs, but how do we generate them, and then how do we turn them into buyers? And joining us for this wonderful session is Kevin Thompson, Chief Marketing Officer at Princess Grace Foundation USA. Over to you, Kevin.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. So this is a fascinating conversation for me, and I'm glad that I could join and just offer a bit of insight and hopefully answer some questions. I think there is, I'll keep my eye on the chat. I want very much for this to be a discussion, if possible, and sort of curious to understand what participants in the conversation are interested in. So I'll if I'm glancing to the side, then I'm looking at questions, and I'll definitely come back to you. So I'll give you a little bit of background first. I know, my role has recently changed. So when I first joined the Marketing Innovation Exchange, or was asked to join in this conversation, I was Chief Marketing Officer at Sotheby's International Realty. So very much in a, I guess what you would say is a fairly traditional marketing space. I was when I joined 3.5 years ago, I was tasked with trying to reinvent that brand and bring a very sort of staid, historical, legacy luxury real estate brand kicking and screaming into the modern world. And the real estate industry is one that was late to evolve. Certainly, I feel like when I joined that it really was the last global industry to be disrupted digitally. Real estate agents, in many parts of the world are independent contractors. Certainly here in North America they are, where the bulk of Sotheby's business is. But of course, we were in 72 countries, so doing business all around the world in luxury markets. But real estate agents, I think for many years, and this is not a knock to a real estate agent, but I love them dearly. But real estate agents for many years, I think had been very successful and work, whether as independent contractors here or very independent employees of companies in other places around the world, their business practice had not changed, and it was very print focused, and it was very heavily focused on brochures and sort of the physical activity of real estate. And there was not a lot of attention being paid to the evolution of digital marketing, so many of our affiliated companies just had not even started that transition. I came to real estate from luxury retail, which was disrupted by digital. This is the place where I talk about Amazon for a moment. So Amazon changed how retail business was done on a global scale, of course. And now, Amazon is not the only, but when Amazon first started, certainly here in North America, retail businesses, I was working for Gucci at the time. I was overseeing their customer experience and managing ready-to-wear collections based in New York. And we had to change how we did business. We had no choice. I think that particularly the luxury industry that had been so hands-on for such a long time was very focused on that and really had not put a lot of time and energy into developing digital channels. So long story short, I came into real estate, an industry that I think had not been disrupted. And I want to paint a little bit of a picture of that, because I think how that evolution happened is informative and is also, I think, a reflection of what happened in other industries as a result of digital disruption and the desire to acquire qualified leads via digital channels. So fairly early on at Sotheby's, we contracted the Boston Consulting Group, a global consulting company based here, mainly here in New York, and we asked them to really take a look at real estate, at the behavior of real estate agents and salespeople, and what, how they were working in that space. And we saw some really interesting things. Certainly, we learned a lot from that research. We talked to consumers, we talked to agents, we talked to business owners, and I think that is vital when you are deciding what channels to be active on, which channels to choose, and which channels to prioritize. And because there are so many now, you can be active in across Instagram and Facebook, and of course Facebook was our #1 traffic driver and is for many retailers. Pinterest, Twitter, TikTok, I mean, it's almost endless now. So how do you choose, and how do you determine a marketing ROI, particularly as an agent and an independent contractor? So this is what we saw. in the feedback from the Boston Consulting Group, we saw agents and we saw affiliated companies, owners of affiliated companies, and I think that this is reflected in many industries globally. We saw these individuals and small companies that had sort of divided their time and attention across multiple channels. When, on Instagram alone, we had individuals and again owners of small companies that had just listed channels. They had just sold channels. They had my personal taste channels. They had get to know me channels. They were spread across all of these channels, and what they were doing was investing in an overabundance of time and energy in managing multiple channels. And they had individuals following them across multiple channels, but the degree to which they were interacting with consumers really at the end of the day was very, very low. We saw this, Instagram was the perfect example, but we saw this across other channels as well. I think there was this initial push to just be present on social media, be present on all of these digital channels, but there wasn't a lot of researched, data-driven thinking put into understanding which channels are the right channels. So at the end of the day, what we tried to do was create a strategy at the brand level that really spoke to or helped our affiliated companies and our agents understand how to put the right content in front of the right people at the right time, because that at the end of the day is how you're going to acquire qualified leads. It is the only way that you're going to maximize your ROI in that space, because it is so easy to create content that doesn't resonate. It is so easy to create too much content in too many places, or too little content spread across too many channels. So there was a concerted effort to really educate and help our team members understand that we really needed to refine that approach. And really, at the end of the day, we wanted decision making about marketing investment to be driven by data and by research. So when we decided that was going to be our approach, that it needed to be our approach, because we needed to assist our the people who are part of our company who are driving revenue in understanding how to optimize those digital channels, we ended up partnering with a strategic content development company, a company called Quietly. They're a phenomenal organization. I encourage any of you that are interested in looking at data and research-driven content development to check them out. Quietly.com. They're based in Vancouver, Canada, a wonderful organization. And we reached out to them because we wanted to make sure that if we were going to invest in lead generation via digital channels, particularly when it came to social media, the website I'll talk about in a minute, but particularly when it came to social media, we wanted to make sure that every word of the content that we were creating was optimized and that we had made that strategic investment. What Quietly was able to do for us that we were not able to do internally was to an initial sort of swath of social listening. And so they went out and they really, they spent some time understanding the conversations that were happening about our brand in the public sphere, about our industry, what our position could really be in that space, and help us optimize that ROI in all of our marketing efforts in the digital space. They came back with a robust report. We got to this, and this was fascinating to me. It was really interesting to see the conversations that were happening that we didn't know about, that we didn't fully understand. I've always been driven by direct interaction with consumers from brands. I love brand psychology. I love how brands play in that space. And it was fascinating to see what our consumers were talking about that we didn't know about, that we maybe didn't really fully understand. And that was highly informative. They were talking about Sotheby's International Realty as the voice of authority in luxury lifestyle living. And that is a conversation that the company, the brand, had never had before. We were not thinking about anything related to the brand as informing a lifestyle. And that was a massive opportunity. And I think this is true across the board. I think, for brands, if brands can figure out how to connect with consumers in meaningful ways with relevant content on digital channels. Obviously, if you're, at the end of the day, if you're not digital first, you're just not marketing effectively. And I really do believe that. I've learned that for many years in the industry now. And if your approach is not digital first, particularly video, you're not marketing effectively. So what I'm sort of circling back to the Quietly efforts, what they taught us was that we had an opportunity to connect in a way that was sort of singularly unique in the real estate industry. We had a chance to create or to position a brand that had been around. Sotheby's has been around for 277 years now. We had a brand that is centuries old, and we had an opportunity to position it as the voice of authority in luxury real estate living. And that was a huge opportunity. So I think regardless of the industry you're in, you know, when I was in luxury retail, I've shifted now more into working for a philanthropic organization. But at the end of the day, you know, what you're trying to do is connect with consumers in a meaningful way. Again, the right content in front of the right people at the right time, and create a relation and build a relationship with them. When you can do that, and if you can do that effectively, those are your most qualified leads. Those are the leads that you're going to convert into sales. So we looked, our approach was to look very closely at our consumer journey map. Again, something new in the real estate space. For many, many years, real estate agents were in control of the conversation. A client would reach out and say, I'm thinking about buying or selling my house. Or if they're thinking about buying, the agent would say, okay, great, I'll do my research. Here are the 10 houses in your, you know, in the neighborhood you're looking at. You're going to buy one of these houses, and I'm going to tell you which one is right for you. The journey doesn't look like that anymore. Consumers get to choose, right? The funnel is driven. The top of the funnel is driven by digital experience that they are entirely in control of. And so for brands, the challenge then is about trying to connect in meaningful ways and capture attention to drive that. At the top of the funnel, you have consideration, you have inspiration. If you capture that inspiration, if you're able to inspire with meaningful content, you can move those leads, the lead generation journey moves into consideration and ultimately transaction and then recommendation. So, you know, that's the trick to it at the end of the day. It's not complicated. I think, you know, what the transformation into the digital realm has done for brands that are open to the evolution and are open to the idea of transforming their approach, it's provided them I think a direct path to do it. If you can sort out what I touched on at the very beginning, you know, you can't spread yourself too thin. You can't manage across multiple channels. But if you can narrow the approach, I think it can be highly effective via digital. So I see some questions are popping up, and I want to take a moment to touch on some of those. So Louise asked, how long was the approach to transforming at Sotheby's? So how long was the approach? I don't think it's ever finished. I think the initial change took a year. It really took a year of stepping back, doing the research, excuse me, doing the research, making sure I wanted all of our decisions to be data-driven, to be reasoned, because in the marketing space, and I've been in marketing for a long time, what you often fall victim to as the head of marketing is people who are not in marketing think that you spend all of this money and you create beautiful pictures and fancy artwork and logos and all of this fun stuff. But how do you drive sales? Where's the science to it? How do you connect that ROI? So digital channels have made this easier because you can track consumer interaction. You can look at likes and clicks and click-throughs and engagements and impressions and all of those. There are all these metrics that didn't exist for marketers before. But I think really shifting the approach, moving from a very traditional, very print-focused, very independent marketing approach to a truly digital-first approach for Sotheby's International Realty took a year. The research took about 3 months in the beginning, working with Boston Consulting Group. From that, we had 9 recommendations. We created a year-long roadmap following that initial hit of research. And we spent our time focused on those 9 recommendations. I think, as I said earlier, it's so easy to get distracted, and there's so many channels and there's so many places that you can go and do things. I think that having the right partner and working with BCG was so beneficial because they were able to take a very unbiased look at the industry and tell us, in all honesty, where we were positioned and how we got there and what we needed to do, to change. Okay, so I want to take a look at a couple of other questions. Experiential and empathy marketing continues a massive direction that marketing is taking. How can we leverage more on digital marketing sites? So I think, true. I think, experiential and empathy marketing is key. So let's sort of split that into 2 categories. I think experiential, vital, what digital channels have allowed us to do with a digital first, video first approach to marketing is create these sort of immersive experiences that consumers can step into at their own pace, driven by their own desires, driven by their own ability. They can decide for themselves how deeply they want to interact with the brand. And so the challenge again then is making sure that you offer meaningful connections. It has to matter to them. If the challenge for Sotheby's was that we were around for almost 300 years. I think many new emerging affluent and aspirational consumers didn't think we were relevant anymore. They didn't believe that Sotheby's International Realty was the brand for them. That was literally what we heard in the feedback. They said, I know the auction house, I know that Sotheby's is dominant in this luxury space, but it's kind of this old, staid, stodgy British brand, and it's not new and exciting to me. And so, so we had to transform how they felt about the brand. And we did that through this experiential focused marketing. I think, empathy marketing is there. I guess it's ironic to say there's sensitivity about that, but I think there is, if you're going to do it, if you're going to focus on marketing in that way, be honest. I hesitate to say the word authentic because I think it's getting overplayed in the marketing industry. I think authenticity, should be table stakes. Why wouldn't you have an authentic approach? What the transition into digital first has meant for a lot of brands is that if you are being inauthentic, you are very easily uncovered and exposed. And I think that can be very risky when you think about the current sort of cancel culture that we are in globally. Certainly here in the United States, there's this idea that if you make a mistake, it's over. And sort of this bandwagony approach to jumping on and really calling out. Now, do I think that I don't fully disagree with the cancel culture approach, because I think if you're being lied to, if you're being misled, if you're being, if companies, brands, individuals are being dishonest, they should be called out for that. But I think there's also, no one is perfect, and mistakes will likely get made. And I think people deserve an opportunity to correct those if they're made, if the mistakes are made authentically, which I guess is kind of ironic as well. Okay, there's another question here. Do I believe the marketing and sales funnels are more closely intertwined than ever? Absolutely. Absolutely. Of course they are. I mean, I think in part, I think that has been driven by this digital transformation because those metrics are there, because marketers can now definitively, or much more definitively, point to lead generation with all of those KPIs that I mentioned earlier, and you can you can invest more strategically as a result. And I think marketing in the digital realm is more directly linked to sales because people can click to buy. They couldn't do that before, right? When I was in luxury retail, when I was at Gucci or Barney's or Montclair, if we ran a page in Vogue, in the September issue of Vogue, the hope was that the image would resonate and that people would be inspired and they would come and buy something as a result. But, you could never really prove it. I mean, you only could in examples, if you featured a handbag in that ad, and in the fall, when the September issue came out, 2 weeks later, all your stores had sold out of that handbag, then yes, you could say that the ad probably helped with that, but that's as close as you could get. With click to buy, you have direct attribution. You know that the ad was especially if you were doing, if you were using cookies, if you were planting a pixel on someone's phone, if you were tracking behavior, if you're doing all of those things, you really have direct attribution in a way that you just didn't before. So definitely those marketing and sales funnels are closely intertwined. And, I think what the digital transformation has forced many organizations to do, not all. I think it's coming. The time is coming where all will be at some point, but it's really helped to sort of eliminate those silos in big organizations where sales and marketing were almost at the opposite ends of the spectrum, right? The salespeople were saying, we're the ones driving revenue, and a portion of our revenue goes to that marketing department at the other end of the hall, and they do these fancy things and spend all that money, but we're really the ones driving sales. And I just don't think that that's the case anymore. Hi, Tony.
Awesome. Good pause there, Kevin. We can say you've had your coffee and you're fired up this morning more than I am at the end of the day.
Yeah, to me, it's a fascinating conversation. I find this evolution really amazing to watch. I love the idea of brand psychology and sort of seeing the power of what brands can do and how they can interact and how they can drive consumer sentiment and action at the end of the day.
And I think it's so important. What I love about the conversation that we've just had with you, and also I had a look at the Quietly thing that you guys did, because you're a case study obviously on there, and it did like 100 in kind of calls, 21. There was a whole bunch of great results, but just doing the research beforehand. I think sometimes we get so kind of tied up in a speed to market mentality that we don't take time to think about it. And then if we think about it and do some research, we actually have a far greater result at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And also, I think what's scary for some organizations about the research, I mean, we worked with Boston Consulting Group, which is one of the big global players, not inexpensive at all. But at the end of the day, I honestly believe we spent less money because we did that. Or I should say we wasted less money, right? Because if you're out there like these real estate agents and you're firing on all these channels and you're spending time and energy, and at the end of the day, that's money to you as an agent across all these channels that no one's really listening to and no one really cares about. We had agents who were driving tens of millions of dollars in sales volume that had, a few dozen followers on social media. And that is a massive miss to me. What that said to me was that they couldn't possibly be posting content or creating content that was meaningful. And there's no way those channels were driving qualified leads.
No, unbelievable. Fantastic conversation. Really appreciate it. Kevin Thompson, now the Chief Marketing Officer at Princess Grace Foundation, USA. Thank you for sharing all your insights today on our Marketing Innovation Exchange.
No problem.